we have Shoyo with us tonight as our lovely guest, and she is going to tell us about pretty much careers in tech and how she loves that. And she's getting interviewed by myself, Jackie, and Claire of Embrace IT. And pretty much what we're promoting is making sure that guys know that tech is dope. It's nothing to be scared about. Yes, you have to put in the hard work, but it is quite dope. And so we're gonna go ahead and have Claire introduce a little bit about Shoyo, and then we go from there.
Sure. So, hi everyone. Welcome to Embrace IT Take His Dope weekly interview session. So, as Jackie stated, we have the privilege of interviewing Ademusoyo, also known as Shoyo. So, just a quick intro. So, Shoyo is an engineer based out of Brooklyn, New York, a designer, a public speaker, a writer, an entrepreneur. In short, Shoyo is Superwoman, and don't just love to see it. So we cannot wait to hear more about your journey and what you're all about. We're super excited to speak to you today. And Jackie, go ahead and take it away. We could start talking to Shoyo.
Shoyo, we're gonna start with just something very simple, and it's all about you. What makes you tick? What just sets your soul on fire?
I think like myself, like I feel like I'm always in competition with myself and always trying to like do better and improve. And I think that is really what kind of keeps me going from day to day. And I think also like being an immigrant of Nigerian parents, as well as immigrating here myself, like also fuels me to kind of keep going and kind of achieve the things that my parents like brought us here to do, and the sacrifices that they made to make it worth it for them.
Oh wow, that's pretty good. So you feel pretty much what you've done here, and I'm sure we talked about your mom earlier. You want to make sure that she's watching, just so that she's proud of all the things that they taught you growing up, and ensuring that you're doing great in the United States, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Claire for her to ask the next question.
Sure. So software engineering has always been considered a male-dominated field. So why software engineering, Shoyo? Why did you decide that that's the path that you wanted to take?
Yeah, so backing up, before I decided to become a software engineer, I actually wanted to be a doctor. When I was 5, I was like, oh, I want to be a pediatrician. But at the same time, I was always that kid that was always trying to figure out how like computers worked, how cell phones worked, even though like technology was not what it is now than when I was younger. But I always wanted to know how things worked, but I never really kind of saw anyone who looked like me that was doing it to kind of ask. So I didn't really know like what that looked like. And then fast forwarding to when I was in high school, I kind of realized like, hey, like I don't actually want to become a doctor. Like, what is it that I actually want to do? And I really didn't know what I wanted to do for a while. And then I went to like a college session at a local college in Texas, and I went to the engineering session and I went to the business session, and I was like, I really like engineering. Like, I really want to do this. And when you apply to college, like you had to pick what you were majoring in. So I was like, oh, like I want to study engineering. And so I studied computer engineering. I thought about a lot of other different engineering disciplines, but I ultimately wanted to apply computer engineering principles to those things. So it's like, why not just start at the foundational level for it? And then the rest is history.
Makes sense.
Pretty much. What exactly do you enjoy most about your career then, I'd say? And then I'd also ask in that aspect, based on the fact that I'm taking it you enjoy it right now. I mean, I guess there's the good and the bad. What would you also advise anybody who's looking to transition? Either they're in tech and they're looking to transition into engineering, or they want to get into tech altogether, because you stated you wanted to be a doctor initially, and that's not what you are. So how would that journey look like, really?
Yeah, I think being honest with yourself is the first thing. Like, I think oftentimes we get caught up trying to make decisions with groups of people when only an individual actually has to carry them out. And I think the first step is to really be honest about what is it that you actually like. I think also kind of knowing what your strengths are and also what your weaknesses are, and not focus on trying to make your weaknesses your strengths, but focus on trying to make your strengths your strengths. And I think also like networking, connecting with different people, getting plugged into like online communities, doing research. I feel like there's not one way into tech. Like I kind of took the more, I would say the boring route of studying it and then landing my first job as a software engineer. But I have friends who were theater majors. I know people who were philosophy majors. I know people who were fashion designers, journalists, and they've all somehow found their way into working into tech into some capacity. So there's definitely no options. In terms of software engineering specifically, I think that can be a little bit daunting and a little bit challenging, but I think the best thing that you can do is learn things that interest you the most and then build upon those things and kind of create projects related to what you're passionate about, because ultimately it's not just about coding, it's also about how you connect and interact with people as well. So being able to sort of like tell your story in a way that resonates with other people is definitely going to be really important.
Okay, yeah, that's really, I love the part that you stated, don't try to make your weaknesses your strengths. And I feel that a lot of people are always in the art of trying to make their weaknesses their strengths. And you're like, okay, why don't you just make your strengths your strengths? I really love that part. I'm also just wondering about, was it difficult for the people who did not study tech uh, to begin with? Was it difficult for them then to transition into tech? Have you found that to be the case?
Yeah, in some aspects, I think there's cases where like people were very either like mid-level or senior in whatever they're doing, and they transition into tech, specifically software engineering. And ultimately, it's like you're starting your career over again. And so that can kind of be challenging. I think also there's a lot of like apprenticeship programs and things like that, or that they're like, oh yeah, like you don't need a college degree, but a lot of times these companies aren't giving people the same benefits as people who do have college degrees. And so that's also not really helpful or not really fair. But I do think that the industry is slowly changing to where it can be a lot more like easier to kind of navigate the tech space. And I think that's where like getting involved in different communities really help with that. But I think that it is going to be tough. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to be like an easy walk in the park. And I think it does take a little bit of like humbling yourself and realizing like there is a lot that you don't know and that you're here to learn. Because it's not like, while some stuff from your old job may be able to kind of carry into the engineering space, like there's still a lot of things that you don't know at the end of the day.
True, true, true. And I'll say over to you, Claire. Then, Claire, do you have any questions for her?
Yeah. That was great advice, Shoyo. I think it's important for people to know that they're coming into a space that they know nothing about, and just humble yourself and just be ready to learn. So, do you feel like many women or girls are missing out in jobs in coding and just tech as a whole? Do you feel like maybe we need more women into the tech space?
Absolutely. I feel like the reason why I think I write my blogs and do all these other different things is to show people that you can do it and you can thrive. And there is people that look like you that are doing it. When I graduated from college that year, I was the only Black woman to graduate with a degree in computer engineering in my graduating class. And I remember just sitting through all of these classes, like just being the only one a lot of the time, feeling so isolated, and really recognizing that, like, I understand why people don't do this because it's really hard.
Right.
Kind of be the only person, especially when everyone around you is like, oh yeah, like I totally understand this, and you don't. Like it was not easy for me by any stretch of the imagination at all. Like I really struggled. But I do think that I think the hard part is like finding, like it can be really isolating. But once you kind of get over those hurdles, once you find your community, like you're gonna feel the opportunities are so endless, and beyond software engineering, beyond your job, there's so much that you can do.
I love the part where you talk about community, and I feel that it's a big part of who you are. I mean, other than the fact that, yes, you did get your education, but I feel that it's a really big part of your career development, growth, and advancement. And do you find your communities online, or do you actually have communities who you go and sit with and have coffee? How would you describe community? What does that look like to you?
To me, I think community is simply where you feel like you can be yourself. I think when I was in college, it was a lot easier to kind of like sit down with people and kind of be able to kind of say whatever you want and just kind of have that opportunity. And I was definitely really involved in different organizations in college. Fast forwarding to like post college, it's definitely a lot harder because people have their own lives. You have your own life. So sitting down with people isn't always as feasible. And now we're in a pandemic. So sitting with people even more so now is even harder. But I think like one thing I do try to do is like, if I feel that this, like whoever I'm encountering, I feel like we can really get along, like I try to go deeper and really try to build like a relationship with them in a more interpersonal way than just someone who like I kind of see sometimes once a month or anything like that. Because I think that ultimately that's what strengthens your community and that's what exposes you to different opportunities.
So Shoya, what are some of the challenges you've experienced as a woman engineer, especially being a Black woman engineer? What are some of the challenges you've experienced?
I think I've encountered a lot of bias, and I feel like you don't realize it when you're in it, but when you look back, you're like, huh, that probably wasn't great. And I feel like a lot of it had to do with the color of my skin. And I think that in itself dealt with a lot, like I suffered a lot of imposter syndrome as well. I think when I first landed my first job, like they put up all these stats that are like, this is how many people applied and this is how many people got the job. And you're like, whoa, me? Like you picked me? And you see people like go to all of these like really like super fancy schools and did all of the stuff. And it's just kind of like, what is going, like, how did I end up here? But I think also just kind of I've had to fight a lot in my career to kind of get the opportunities that I wanted and kind of seek out the opportunities for myself, and have had to make decisions that I'm like, I'm not being supported here and I have to go because this isn't going to help me in the long run, or this isn't going to be helpful at any point. So
I hear you. I would love to touch on the fight part. And I feel that I'd say one, a lot of women, and I'll say a lot of women just in general across the board, and then a lot of women of color, and then say maybe a lot of minorities. I'm just dividing it in, segments of how it can be divided, where when we face some type of resistance, one, school is not easy. Just start with that. Whatever you're starting, people may not like to really go to school, period. Okay, so you're done with school and you're hoping that, your career is going to kick off, you finished and everything. And then you have to come and fight. What does that feel like? How does that day or that month, and you could be fighting for a day, you may be fighting for a month, I don't know, maybe you may be fighting for a year, but could you walk us through that from an emotional perspective? And then why do you stay or why do you leave, and why say did you start at one level and move to the other, just so that we can understand that fight perspective and how to actually do it ourselves?
yeah, I mean, I think there was a couple of times where it was like months of just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm here. Like, I think when I graduated from college, I was so burnt out to where I was like, I'm just happy to have a job. I'm just ready to go. Like, I really don't want to be here anymore. And so it took a while for me to kind of understand that just because I like something differently than someone else doesn't mean that I don't like it less. And I think that I was kind of afraid to sort of say that I like being a software engineer, I like coding, and I like doing these things. And I eventually had to be like, no, like I do like it. Like this is what I studied, and I studied this for a reason. And these are the problems that I like to solve, and I should go out and solve them. So eventually you have to kind of overcome your own imposter syndrome and your own doubts about yourself, and people will start to treat you different once you realize that you know what you're talking about and that you know what you're doing. Like I remember like different times where I just laid everything out. I'm like, I did this research. I said, I learned that this was this. I learned that this was that. And my managers or professors or whoever was just like, okay, if that's what you want to do, like that's fine. That makes sense. Like I think that a lot of times, like I feel like because you are a Black woman or a Black person or a person of color, you aren't given necessarily the same grace to kind of be like figuring it out casually or doing all of this, because the longer you spend kind of idly, the negative, it's only going to hurt you in the long run. And I feel like while people try to tell you that you have time, you really don't. Because then people will start recounting, well, you've done this and it took you this and it did that. And people are a lot less forgiving of people of color in general. So I think that the best thing that you can do for yourself is to always be ready, always come correct. And even if you're not sure what that looks like yet, like being able to kind of say like, still be working towards something.
Okay. Got you. Sorry, go ahead, Claire.
No, I just wanted to say I like what she said when she says when they say you have time, you really don't. You really just have to hit the ground running. And that's just it. As a Black person, as a Black woman, as an immigrant, person of color, it doesn't matter. You just have to hit the ground running. So I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Know what it is, know what time it is, and just deal with the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
I do.
I
And
feel
I
like,
also, sorry, go ahead.
I was like, because I feel like sometimes we can get caught up in like complaining about the system. I don't want to say complaining, like, but it can be frustrating and you do want to vent. But I think the important thing is like, after you've let it all out there, like pick yourself up and carry yourself forward, because the society we live in is the society we live in. And this isn't, nothing is going to change after that, like until we start showing up more and more places.
I hear you. I hear you. That will lead me to the next question, which would be then how have you influenced staff positively?
I think especially in my current job, I think I've challenged a lot of people's ideas about things and different processes. I've kind of like, I remember one time specifically recently, I was leading a meeting and I like created the agenda. I kept everyone on track. Like I just like had it all going, and people were like, wow, like this is great. Like everyone walked away from this meeting like knowing what we were gonna do and just super impressed and super surprised, like super happy with everything, which I thought was really like comforting. And then the next time that we had to have another like planning meeting like that, someone was like, oh, like Shoyo, can you like explain the framework of how these meetings go and like what we should do and things like that. So I think I've done a lot to kind of improve methodology and kind of challenge the way a lot of people think about things. I feel like a lot of times I'm that person on the team that's like, I don't really think that's going to work out that way, and this is why. And sometimes I'm just standing by myself because other people are like, oh, I don't know, like we'll see, and I'm like, no, it's not going to work. And this is why. So it's definitely been a challenge of like trying to like speak up, because I don't think I necessarily have the loudest voice all the time, but when I speak, like you're gonna know, like I know what I'm talking about at the same time as well.
Oh, there you go. And then when I'll say know your onions, because you know that chances are that most probably you will be challenged, and you know this. So I guess it's also maybe going home to do more work, doing more research, and then actually knowing what it is that you know, which also brings me then to the question I'll say to Claire and Shoyo about then building your brand so that then society knows what you're about. How does that look like in terms of your career, say, be it entrepreneurial or at work in the tech space? How then do you build that brand so that guys know what you're about? How does that look like?
Yeah, I think you have to ultimately be more than your job. I feel like I feel like the more you like develop or like your career, you go on in your career, it becomes less and less about like what you can do and like your impact. And so I feel like that kind of like the earlier you start trying to build up that like impact that you're trying to do, the better it is for you. I would say like even to be like a senior like a really senior engineer, like there is some level of impact that you have to make in some capacity, whether it's like within the company you're in or to the broader industry as well. And like the more you strengthen those things, the better it is going to be for you. And I think also, if there's anything that this pandemic has shown, is that everything is changeable. Like, things can just be cut, no problem, no questions asked. And I think to be building your brand is important, because it's like when things get like hard at your current job or whatever, you're able to kind of pivot and be like, I know that I'm going to be okay. Especially if you're someone who like doesn't have like a safety net to just kind of fall back on, as if I personally don't. It's like, it's really just me. I mean, I can go home, but not like, I won't have money, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's really about like having, building up yourself so that you know kind of what you're doing, and kind of making sure that you're like, you're more than just like engineer at X company or project manager at X company. It's like, you're also someone who people are like, hey, like, I would want to work with them. Because when you see like in society, when you hear of these different professionals that are getting changed around here and changed around there, it's because they've built up this brand of like, I can do this, and I've shown how I've done this at place X, and now I'm going to go do this at place Y. And I think that that's just like how society really works, especially within the tech industry.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. I'll say over to Clay. I love the impact, and I mean, impact, build your brand and, have some impact and create that and see whether it's going to be within your company or overall across the board. So over to you, Claire.
Sure. So, Shoyo, how can the world join you? And when I say how can the world join you, I just mean in terms of like people who want to go into engineering, into tech. How can people join you?
Yeah, so I have my own personal Instagram, Ademusoyo on Instagram, and I post tech tips weekly. And I always respond back to comments and things like that. So if you have questions about things that I've posted, be sure to ask them, and I'll be sure to respond. I also have a blog that you can subscribe to and learn more about like tech tips, as well as like productivity tips and things like that. Yeah, like anywhere I'm on the internet, like feel free to engage, feel free to ask questions, feel free to email. I'm pretty open when it comes to those sort of things. And I'm always willing to help people. I'm always willing to kind of lend advice, or at least share my experience, and hopefully that helps and that resonates with someone.
Sure. And we'll definitely be putting those tags on our Facebook page. So
Absolutely right. Wherever they can reach her. Right. And we're gonna ask you, what are your 5 tips for success? And it could be in tech or not in tech, just what are your tips?
My 5 tips for success are to have a goal, to create a plan, to be disciplined, but also give yourself the opportunity to kind of like fall back a little bit at the same time, because sometimes you need a break. Like, you personally can't just do it all. Be curious, and to also challenge everyone. Challenge the things that don't make sense.
Okay.
I like that. I like that. So do not be afraid to question the status quo, really. Okay. That's awesome. Awesome.
I have one more to ask. What and maybe 2 more, I'll say. What was the lowest point at your out of school, your career wise? What was your lowest point? And also, after your lowest point, what was your highest point, so that we can see, both sides of the scales?
Yeah, I think my lowest point was, probably like, I think 7 months out of college. I was feeling pretty low. Like, I felt like my career wasn't really going anywhere. I felt like no one really cared whether I showed up or didn't show up. And I was also very much by myself. Like, I moved to the New York City area, not really knowing anyone, like knowing people that I like interned with, but not really having that like friends that I did have, and really just having to kind of start over and trying to navigate that space. And I just didn't really know what I was doing. And I probably didn't really want to be here either, but I had to. And so I kind of just had to figure out, like, start looking for things and looking for different opportunities, and really wanting to just leverage my network and kind of get uncomfortable with like talking to different people about stuff just to see what's going on. But I think my highest moment was probably getting my new job, the job that I have now. Like I've been there for about a year. It'll be a year tomorrow, actually. And I think that one was just a really high moment because I really sat and was like, I think that was where I was able to really like finally erase all imposter syndrome that I've ever had, any doubts that I've had about myself. I really challenged and made sure I asked the right questions so I knew what I was getting myself into before I got there. And I just felt like this was the best, like I knew going into it, like this was the best decision that I could have made for myself. And I feel like I've been able to kind of finally see that like all of the things that make me me, not just being an engineer, are valued and well received. And it's kind of helped me be able to thrive in so many different ways that I didn't think possible.
Awesome. And they're lucky to have you. Black magic.
That's a, and I'll ask then, what made you decide? You look at this job and you decided that this is the one. You were sitting down one day and saw it and decided this is what you're gonna aim for, or
no. Were you stalking them like I was stalking them?
I got referred by one of my friends. So this goes back to like community is really important, but I wasn't really actually focused so much on the company specifically. Like I knew I wanted to work in consumer facing products because I felt like the problems facing consumer facing products are a lot different than the problems when you work at a bank, for example. And so I knew that that was going to be the next phase to really grow myself as a software engineer to the best of like I can do, to be really seen as like a strong engineering professional and engineering leader. And it kind of just like from the moment I like talked to HR to the time that they like I got there, like everyone was just super welcoming. They really tried to make sure they could say my name when I got there, which is like the first time that's ever really happened when applying. And everyone was so inclusive. It was such a diverse like panel of people. And it just felt right. Like it just kind of felt like this is where I should be next, and this is where my career should continue.
I'm happy that you are so happy and enthusiastic about it, and that you were well received and actually cared. They cared to ensure that they were pronouncing your name right, which goes a really long way. When you feel that you're actually wanted and included, it goes such a long way in feeling, accepted in the workspace. So with that, I'm going to hand over to you, Claire, for our closing remarks. And so if you don't mind, you can tell us where they can reach you again, if you just want to say it clearly as to how they can get you on Instagram and how they can get you on Facebook, or wherever they can get you. Could give us your handles.
Are you ending, or am I saying where you?
No, you are saying it. We'll also have it out. Yeah, but you are saying it. Yeah.
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ademusoyo. That's ADEMUSOYO. From there, you'll get links to everything, my email, my LinkedIn, all of that, certain things. You can DM me. My DMs are open on all of those different platforms. So that's like the best starting point to kind of just see what it is, all that I do, and kind of figure out like what really resonates and vibes with you.
Okay, well, thank you. We're also going to have it out like in the link, and we're going to have a YouTube link as well going. So with that YouTube link, it's going to be written out to make it clear. We're also going to have it on our Facebook community page. So if anyone is looking out, to reach out to you and have a chat with you. And on the same token, just like we can reach out to you, also you feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We are based in Atlanta, so you're always welcome to Atlanta whenever you wish. And with that, you're very, very welcome. I'm going to give it to Claire so she can say her goodbyes.
Shoyo, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to us today, and we're looking forward to speaking to you more. We'll definitely be putting your handles on the Facebook page and the community page and the WhatsApp, and I'm sure you'll be getting a lot of DMs. So look forward to that.
Well, thank you guys so much for thinking of me to be interviewed. This was a lot of fun. So I'm glad that you guys asked me to do this.
Thank you. We have really enjoyed. And to you soaring in your career and getting bigger and bigger. But I mean, where you are is absolutely awesome. But hey, the sky is the limit as well. So to you soaring.